All right, so we're going to be working on this new prompt, basically writing a story about about this. So it says, write about a time science helped you have fun. Okay, so we've already set up our circle map right here with how science helped me have fun. And so we're going to brainstorm a few ideas now. Your brainstorming will probably look a little bit different from mine, which is fine, all right? So I'm going to think about some things involving science where I had fun. Okay, so there was the time that I made slime. That was pretty fun. Um, I really like space. A lot of space is science. Fossils are cool. Kind of related to that are, I mean, dinosaurs, right? I like that pretty well. Um, kind of animals in general, I find pretty fun. I might pick that one because I have a particular thing that I have in mind. So I think I'm probably going to pick animals. But before I start, I'm gonna brainstorm a little bit more about it. So I'm supposed to be talking about how it helped me have fun. So teaching science about animals is actually really fun to me. Um, so I had this lesson where I was talking about carnivores, herbivores, and omnivores. Okay, and I had some pretty cool stuff to help me do that. Um, so I had these animal skulls, and for the carnivores, it was a mountain lion skull. Mountain lion skull, and we were talking about the teeth in particular. For the herbivores, I had a deer skull, and for the omnivores, I had a raccoon skull. And so we talked about the different type of teeth that these animals have and why. So I think I'm gonna go ahead and talk about this because that'll be kind of easy for me to talk about. All right. So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to take this information and use it to fill in my tree map. Okay. So we need to come up with a good topic for this. So if we are writing about a time science helped me have fun, then I should probably kind of mention that up at the top. So I'm just going to say science helped me have fun. Okay, and remember, this is just quick notes. That's not going to be my full sentence. I'm going to be able to make that into a bigger sentence. So the first thing that I need to talk about is going to be that I was, talking about animals, and I was talking about carnivores in particular, okay? So I'm going to take my first topic. I'm going to go carnivores. And it was a mountain lion skull. We talked about the teeth. And let's see, what else could I come up with? So carnivores, mountain lion skull, talked about the teeth. The teeth were really sharp, right? Teeth were sharp. Okay, so I've got a detail and a lot of tell me mores, okay, to kind of make that into a whole paragraph. So I can talk about, I have a whole paragraph about carnivores. Okay, then if I switch back, I talked about herbivores next, and that was a deer skull. Okay, so I can kind of be do this really similarly, right? So it's herbivores had a deer skull that I was using. I showed the flat teeth, right? Flat teeth, and flat teeth are for you know, eating plants. So now I can have a nice little paragraph about herbivores, and then I had omnivores last. It was a raccoon skull. It had sharp and flat teeth. And eats meat and plants. Okay, so this is a real basic thing. Now I need to be sure to talk about why this was fun for me as well. Okay, so right over here we've got paragraph 1. Right here we have paragraph 2, and right here we have paragraph 3. So when it comes time for me to write this, I'm going to start off with my topic sentence, and remember I need to kind of make that exchange this little idea for an actual sentence, and then I can start in on these. So we're going to go ahead and pause here, and I'm going to have you give this a shot on your own. All right, so hopefully you did okay with that. So now it's time to take this information and put it onto our paper. So I'm gonna start off with my topic sentence. And notice I went ahead and indented, so I went in about a finger width over from the line, just to make it so that I know that that's the beginning of a paragraph, okay? So it says, let me tell you about, and that's just a real easy way to start telling a story is, hey, let me tell you about a time I did blank, you know? So I'm gonna go ahead and use this along with this. So it's, let me tell you about a time science helped me have fun. A time science helped me have fun. Now, remember, for the sake of being able to go back and edit this later, I'm going to make a few mistakes on purpose. Now, you obviously shouldn't do mistakes on purpose because that's a little bit silly. But I'm gonna have some mistakes, so don't panic when you see me like not putting periods and things like that. Okay. So let me tell you about a time science helped me have fun. It all started when I was, let's see, teaching my students about animal teeth. About animal teeth. Okay, so now I can start in on my paragraph 1 because I've kind of given it a little bit of an introduction. So first I talked about carnivores, right? First I talked about carnivores. I brought in a mountain lion skull, right? Mountain lion skull to show my students. Remember, this is just kind of an idea. It gives me some direction. So I'm gonna actually include a little bit of a detail about how that was really fun. My students thought it was pretty cool. Now, if you're extra nice to me, I might even bust this out sometime this week and show y'all, because I still have it. That was pretty cool. Which was fun for me, right? And that's obviously fun because I like when students are excited about learning, okay? So we've talked about that. I've talked about carnivores. I've talked about how I had the mountain lion skull. Now I need to talk about how I was telling about the teeth. Okay. I got to talk about the mountain lion teeth. While showing the students the teeth in the skull. I got to talk about the mountain lion teeth while, how about showing off the real teeth in the skull. So I'm going to go ahead and check that off because I kind of talked about it, and now I'm going to add this little detail right here. The teeth were sharp which made it fun for the students to look at. Okay, so here's paragraph 1. So I took care of all of paragraph 1. Now I can move on to paragraph 2, okay? So here's what I'm going to do. I'm going to indent again. And so I started with first. Now I'm going to go into next. So you can kind of think of it like this, okay? You know, we have first, next, and we'll just say last over here for our last paragraph. So we're gonna do next. Next, I had fun, because remember, we're talking about how science helped me have fun, and this was a fun experience for me. So next I had fun showing my students an herbivore's skull. Showing my students an herbivore's skull. So took care of that. The skull was a deer's skull. And really, deer skulls look kind of funny. Was a deer's skull. They kind of look funny because it looks like they don't really have a nose. It looked funny because it looked like it didn't have a nose. So my students thought that that was kind of interesting. My students thought that was interesting. Now, obviously you can't talk about how your students thought that was interesting or even really copy this because you haven't taught a lesson using animal skulls. So really remember just to keep this all about things that you've done, okay? So herbivores, deer skull. It had flat teeth, because remember we really want to include details. So it had flat teeth. Let's see, it had flat teeth, which I showed to my students. Flat teeth are for eating plants. We all had a lot of fun. Okay, so I'm done with paragraph 1 and paragraph 2. So paragraph 1, paragraph 2. So it's time to start paragraph 3. And remember, I'm going to start this one with last. So let me go ahead and move this over here like this. And let's see. Indent. Last. I taught about omnivores. I taught about omnivores. I saved the raccoon skull for last. Because it was my favorite. Okay, so omnivores, raccoon skull. I had fun showing my students that a raccoon has sharp and flat teeth. So I had fun showing my students that a raccoon has flat and sharp teeth. This is because they eat meat and plants. Eat meat and plants. So I'm not quite done yet. So I finish all of that, but I really need to remember to put a conclusion on the end. And so for my conclusions, I almost always literally rewrite my topic sentence. So let's go see what my topic sentence was. Okay, so let me tell you about a time science helped me have fun. So I'm going to say, in conclusion, now you know about a time science helped me have fun. So in conclusion, now you know about a time science helped me have fun. Okay, so far we've gone from the circle map to the tree map to our draft. So really now it's all about going back and revising. So what you need to do is you need to come back in here and see if there are little things that we need to tweak to make it sound a little bit better. So let me tell you about a time science helped me have fun. It all started when I was teaching my students about animal teeth. First I talked about carnivores. I brought in, there's a mistake right there. I brought in a mountain lion skull to show my students. My students thought it was pretty cool, which was fun for me. Now let's see. I think I could add a little thing right here. Okay, so I'm gonna put in a little carrot because I can add some more details in here, and I don't really have a whole lot of room, so I'm just going to kind of draw a line out to here, and I'm going to write the mountain lion skull was big and slightly round. So that just adds some details, and that's a nice little sentence. I'll just add that it was also kind of creamy white looking. It was also creamy white. Okay, so I've added 2 sentences in right there. I'm going to keep reading and see if there's any place else I can kind of go back and revise a little bit. Next, I had fun showing my students an herbivore's skull. The skull was a deer's skull. It looked funny because it looked like it didn't have a nose. My students thought it was interesting. I think I'm gonna kind of add another sentence or two. So once again, I'm just gonna kind of draw a line out to here, showing me where I'm gonna put that sentence when I go to write my final. Okay. So let's see. I thought it was interesting. The skull also had really big eyes, right? Had really big eyes. So my students kind of liked that. They were like, whoa, that deer have really big eyes, evidently. So I think that's all I'm going to add right there. Let's see, I showed it to my students. Flat teeth are for eating plants. We all had a lot of fun. Last I taught about omnivores. I saved the raccoon skull for last because it was my favorite. I had fun showing my students. So I really think that I'm kind of done with the revising. So we'll go ahead and pause here, and then tomorrow we'll pick up with the editing. All right, so we're going to go ahead and start with the editing, and we'll just come in and go ahead and set up my cups. Now, some of you haven't actually been reading, which is really obvious when you bring it up to me and I start reading it, and it just doesn't sound great. You know what I'm saying? So we're going to go ahead and show you how to do this properly. So the first thing I'm going to do is I'm going to go through, I'm going to check for capitals. So I'm coming through here and I'm actually reading. So let me tell you about Time Science Helped Me Have Fun. You need to remember that I missed a period right here. It all started when I was teaching my students. Now look here, I have 2 capitals right here. So I need to kind of slash those so that I'll remember to do that later. First, I talked about carnivores. I brought in a mountain lion skull to show my students. Remember, I'm just looking for capitals right now. I got to talk about my teeth while showing off the real teeth in the skull. The teeth were sharp. Need to remember that for usage later. Made it fun for students to look at. That kind of looks like a capital K. Something you should probably know about Mr. K is I often capitalize K's. That's just a bad habit that I have. So let's say we've got 1, 2, 3 capitals so far. Oh, here's another lowercase 4. The deer skull looked funny because it looked like it didn't have a nose. All right, so we're going to go back through because I think you kind of get the impression of what we're supposed to do with capitals. Go back through and look for usage. So this is really doesn't make sense. And I'm going to come back to here because I remember that I was missing a word here. I brought in mountain lion skull to show. I brought in a mountain lion skull, right? So my students thought it was pretty cool, which was fun for me. I got to talk about the mountain lion teeth while showing off the real teeth in the skull. The teeth sharp. The teeth sharp. Missing another word here. Were sharp, so that's 1, 2 usage. Next, I had fun showing my students the herbivore's skull. The skull was a deer skull. It looked funny because it looked like it didn't have a nose. My students thought it was interesting. So let's think about this for just a second. I showed my students. Flat teeth are free. A lot of fun. So I think we're going to go ahead and start to look at the punctuation. Overall, I think it looks pretty good. So something you should know is that when we use our first, next, and last, we want to put a little comma here. So I'm going to put the comma and circle it so that I see it. And then I'm going to put my little mark. I was also missing my period up here. So that's 2. I think you kind of get the impression. Then of course I would go through, and if I think that I misspelled a word, I would just circle it. So let's just say that I'm not sure about the word herbivores. I would just circle that and go check that in a dictionary or possibly on one of the computers if your teacher lets you. Okay, then of course after we've done all of the editing and all of that, remember to rewrite it. Don't forget what these lines are for. These lines are so that we remember to add in these to make our paper look really nice. So once we've got this edited and rewritten, then it's time for us to publish and we can type this up on the computer.